2 or 3 years ago, probably?
Yeah.
Do we have that?
I'll try to dig it up.
Yes, Crosby, she probably knows right where it is.
I think that is something that our council could use and we could potentially use, because I'm sure the sound readings then are a lot less than what they are now, and they probably were darn close to not being acceptable then, based on just the amount of traffic and everything.
Yeah, because you got to take two readings: ambient, daytime sound, and then nighttime, because just the ambient daytime is louder than.
Right.
So, do you feel it would be worthwhile to dig that stuff
I guess the
up?
question is, they counting just using their own funds, no state funding for that road widening or not?
I have no idea. I don't know.
Because
But it is a state road.
82, yeah.
It is.
It's a state road, so there may be some state funding with county.
Who paid for the
funding
lots
and
of
I
administration.
think it's worth
State.
getting, again, I go
But we
back.
have that, at least. We,
Yeah.
we,
There's an issue.
hopefully we have it.
Is it a state road? Course road?
82.
Yeah, that's 850.
82.
850, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's a
One-
county road 850, I
Okay.
think.
Yeah, I think it's a county road, but
County road
Let me double
850.
check, it should be on there.
Well, I'm saying probably county because
I don't think it's
with the
state
trees coming down, they had said nothing about having this,
82.
the state coming in. Whereas they're talking to FDOT about the lights on 75.
So that's one thing. I think if we can get,
I think the
find that
people,
study, we need it.
and I think it will help the people on Weymouth know that we're at least trying.
And if not, I can go out and retake the measurement, you know?
Okay.
The results were in the minutes. We can find out exactly when it was done. And I think it was like 2 years ago. And I want to say it was in the spring. So, you know, I don't know.
I sure hope we have it, because the reason we did it was to set a baseline, that we know where it was compared to what it's going to be, you know, when it gets built,
Right.
when the final.
And I know you were using it on the golf course because people were complaining about the lawnmowers, but we also used it out there.
Yeah, that's why I purchased it originally.
Okay. And that way at least will give us,
Yeah, unless they say it's not an acceptable state test, I don't know the techniques that we utilize.
Right.
Because there is a manual that's found in there on how to conduct those noise studies.
Okay.
Would you email that to me, so I make sure I'm doing it at least somewhat properly?
Well,
Send them the link.
well, it's, yeah, traffic noise modeling, so it's pretty sophisticated, I'm sure, but I'll send you the,
I'm just using a little sound dB meter.
Yeah.
No, it's not. 82 is the closest one.
okay, so that is a county
They
road.
don't, yeah, they don't go across state.
Yeah.
but I'll keep looking if there's a possibility of using it in informal, sure.
Okay.
Hey, Eileen?
Yes,
Eileen?
yes,
Eileen?
I'm here.
When John did that test, that's when they had all those dump trucks.
Yeah.
Going up and down the road, they weren't supposed to be coming down Arson Road, they were supposed to go do a Rico.
Right, and you were on the board, right, you were on the board then.
So it's 2018.
Yeah,
All right,
that's what that was about. And that's when he was doing that test earlier morning and all the times.
Yeah, they were doing the air braking.
That's
Probably
Yes.
spring 2019.
that's where all the dump trucks are going up and down.
Right.
yes, so it's probably the spring,
Supposedly.
so the spring of 19, so, okay.
All right.
Thank you, Mike.
Second thought came up during our discussions today. Currently, the golf course owes the irrigation fund $250,000. How long is that built up? That's more than a year, isn't it? Or is that just a year?
That was 2 years. That was Hurricane Irma and then the pandemic.
Is there some way that we could work out between our golf course and our irrigation fund that could we defer that to where we could make it longer period of payback?
Longer period of time.
Well, there really is no payback time.
I suppose you could. You're dealing with two different classes of users and payers. And you're not really, I mean, the irrigation fund is solvent, very solvent. So you're not creating a hardship on the irrigation fund and its other class of users, which are the residents. So I don't know, what are your thoughts?
don't have information like that,
Yeah, and where I'm going is, we obviously talk about a lot of these things and the AC problems and also even look at the bond. What did the bondholder say? Well, the bondholder said we could pay off, the golf course could pay off the bonds early as long as it's funds from the golf course. Well, we could forgive or figure out a way to defer $250,000. That's potential money that could be used to help pay down other debts that we have interest on. So saving the golf course, I'm not saying writing it off,
No.
but,
We can write it off.
and of course, the golf course would have to have the money anyway too, but it could be, I'm just planting a seed, a potential avenue where if we had a project and, okay, well, yeah, we could pay the irrigation fund $50,000 right now, or we could use this $50,000 for the AC problem, as long as the irrigation fund would be okay to defer, which they can't make it, well, they can't really make it pay, but I don't know. Anyway, it was a thought.
Well,
I like the idea.
and if you look at it, if we started paying off the bunker loan, because right now we owe the
Right.
bunker
Yeah, that one too, no.
$260.
Try to get it paid off earlier.
Right, the holes. Just try to save some interest.
Well, I mean, Chris, honestly, with what we've accrued in from the general fund for payroll,
Yeah.
you could make one of these payments on the bunker renovation
Right.
early,
Right.
and then you could probably knock the other one off, and then, you could probably pay that back a year or two early.
Right. So, again, it just kind of came to me during the meeting, maybe it's just an idea of something we could look at where it would be a benefit. It's not going to really detriment the irrigation fund.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't create a negative impact because the other users aren't having to pay additionally because the golf course isn't paying right now.
Right.
The debt doesn't go away.
No.
It just, is there a rush to pay it back? No.
Yeah, the question is, I'm sort of thinking whether or not the rates could have been lowered if the government was paying, but the rates have not been raised to pay for any deficit in the budget by the golf course not paying. That's sort of key.
We haven't adjusted the rates in years.
Okay.
They've stayed pretty flat.
So, and I do recall when we did this bunker, there is no prepayment penalty.
No, not at all.
So we could double a payment if we chose to. So the interest payment of $3,000, $3,700 isn't due till August, and then we owe them if we took the money, the $69,000 right now, we could prepay through next February, and then take it from there. So, I'm on page 17.
So something to look at, something to think.
And on that thought process, you could do that, pay it off early, then go get another 4 or 5 year loan and do the cart pass and complete the cart pass even before you do the greens runoff.
That's a good point.
You're going to have to pay back the irrigation fund before you do that, though. Because they're going to look at the financials and see
Yeah,
that
it's true. Yeah.
see that the golf course owes the general fund, so.
Okay.
That's a good point.
And to throw that out there, don't forget, if we're going to do cart path work, bridge work needs to be highly, highly considered part of that. And the last quote I got for all the bridge work, 5-6 years ago, was about $250,000.
Did anybody buy a lottery ticket for tonight?
Damn.
So much for that, I think.
Okay.
And it's all wood, so I heard wood's going up.
Please. That's why I can't believe they had the sheets of plywood.
They're pulling out all the stops. I mean, they're Taj Mahal forts.
Yeah. So, all right, so let's think about where we're going to pay this money back. At this point, do we just leave it where it is, or?
Yeah, let me talk through with Jeff Pender with
okay.
regards to the earlier concept.
Okay,
And let Tony and I take a look at, make sure there isn't some crazy statute out there about, or concept with regards to continuing to defer, a due to and a due from.
okay.
Obviously, you don't like to see those if you're in your audience, but
No, that's okay. But the other thing that I will say with John and Jeff, that they've been really diligent, our payables are,
oh, yeah,
everything, water, everything's paid, so,
everything's paid up except for the irrigation fund.
right. Petty cash.
Borrow from the left pocket.
Yes.
And the last thing I have, and I know I've mentioned it a couple of times before, it's kind of directed more to Tony as well, and now it's, we're talking about a landscaping project that could be $800,000. We're going to have a road project here in 4 years, that's, what's that, $600,000, $500,000, something like that. $500,000.
Just about equal to landscape.
Okay,
It's all set.
so now we're at 1.6. We might be building some sort of barrier or wall, so let's just say that's $500,000. Yeah. So now we're at 2 million. We might buy a clubhouse, which could be 5 million. And we're also talking sort of with HOA about maybe doing some community center, building another one. I mean, there's been a lot of discussion on that. So $15 million maybe with all those projects. Could we bond that out? If we could figure out a way to try to consolidate. I know they're not all going to happen at the same time, but I guess the first question is, if they don't all happen at the same time, but we have solid numbers, can we put that together and build a bond around that?
Yes, you could, yeah.
But can the HOA and the CDD have a combined bond?
No.
No.
What would be our bond?
There have to be you obviously, as a borrower, more than 5-year maturity, so you
Right.
have to validate it through a certain court action.
Right.
And that, depending upon the source of the revenue, if it's assessments, or, I don't know if the irrigation money will be available.
No, it would be assessment.
Assessments. And then we went through this in Gateway, they redid all the assessments, and we validated a 20-year borrowing. You can do it all, define scope of the project, here's the project. And you have to even indicate potential phases, but you're not locked into it. But the issue is typically bond counsel likes to see you spend all the money within 7 years. I think that's sort of what they're.
Well, all this would be
That's
happening.
an outside.
That's the outside side,
That's the
yeah.
outside.
So you can say, here's the project, the capital improvement program for Stony Brook, boom, 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 and list it all in there. Engineer's report, Chuck can do the assessment methodology.
We can do all that. Now, the community center, you talk about building it here in the same location, right next door. You probably don't want to use the district's tax exempt funds for that, just because that will then open it up for general purpose access and usage.
Yeah, what you can do, you can charge other members of the public
This was-
outside Stony Brook rate
This
fee.
one was not.
This was not part of the original infrastructure
Not part
bond?
of the CDD.
Really?
No, it was private.
You can charge them a rate differential, but
That was 8 or 10 years ago. Yeah.
Really?
But you can charge them a rate, say, Stony Brook residents don't have to pay anything for membership to utilize the facility. If you live outside Stony Brook, work out a schedule, $1,000 a family per year, something reasonable, so that part of the rationale is the assessments, the debt service and the O&M assessments are paid for by the property owners here. So they aren't charged separately, but people outside are not paying those assessments. They can get access to membership, but they have to pay.
That would help offset.
Pardon?
And that would help offset.
But then anyone
Yeah.
could be a member.
You have to, yes. If it's taxable bonds, yes. Not taxable, tax exempt bonds.
Okay, so
Tax exempt.
anybody could be a member, and then, so the HOA would have to be a part of that to have some kind of a membership?
No, you can limit it to individuals.
You could build it as a CDD, and you could enter into a lease agreement with the association to operate it. And then you'd be subject to the assessment program that Tony just talked about for outside use, the user fee. But that would allow them through the gate, and you don't have a way to monitor where they're going in the community.
That's a problem.
Your thought would be that they're coming straight to the community center, but they could.
If they're going
And that really kind of underlines that program, which I think a lot of people have pushed back on. So
But
just
we,
something to think about.
but we could say to the HOA, we'll finance that, it will be ours, and we'll lease it to you. Is that what you're saying?
No, the HOA funds it, they go ahead and own and operate it like they're doing this one right now. And it
Okay.
stays totally private, and there's no need to.
Oh, but if we
anyway,
do it, then we have to let
access.
outsiders in. Okay.
Well, we have to give them the opportunity
Right.
And
for a fee.
Sure.
And we set
200,000 and join.
Does this fee have to be a reasonable fee?
it does.
Yeah, it has to be,
You have to
yeah.
have some basis.
There's some basis for it. There's a CDD in Marco Island, which I still question the validity of. They actually, if you're a non-resident, roads are district roads, district gates, and that district adopted a rate schedule for non-residents. You have to pay, I think it's $5 or $10 if you're non-resident to travel through the gate, which,
That's a toll road.
it's a toll road, but that's,
You want to make sure when you're going, you're not going back and forth.
And the basis for it was this detailed engineering study and assessment methodology, talking about these are the type of vehicles, this is the wear and tear, this is the cost. So you have to have an articulatable basis for it. It can't be arbitrary capricious. It can be reasonable and fair, but not arbitrary and capricious.
And what would they want to use it for?
That's what I mean. There'd be a huge demand of people coming in to use the club.
Most people don't know.
Right, right. So I mean, I wouldn't think that would be a huge,
I don't think so.
but anyway.
It just makes it a little more difficult to operate. though. That's-
Something to go in eyes wide open. that's all.
Okay, but if somebody, all right, so let's say we did that and then we had to open it up to memberships. Anybody could say, I want to be a member, or are there any stipulations? Is there?
I could come in and say, I want to be a member. You can say, hey, it's going to cost you $1,000 a year for you and your family.
Okay. But if I don't like you, I still have to let you come in?
Yes.
But there has to be a code that they have to abide by.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. They have to follow the same rules as everybody else.
Okay. Interesting thought.
I like it.
Actually, that would only be for the clubhouse.
Yes.
Right.
Couldn't use the pool.
Indoor community center.
Right.
Whatever was financed.
Whatever's financed through this bond.
And it would just be the clubhouse. And now, if they, because I think their theory is to build a new facility and convert this to the fitness, this room to the fitness center. So they would use that for meetings, for parties and that, and, you know, maybe do other meeting rooms, but I think this would be the fitness center. So that if someone became a member, they'd be a member of
That building?
an empty building, really.
More administrative, is that what you're saying?
Administrative or parties or, you know, that would be used like this room is used.
So would have fitness equipment, wouldn't be anything?
No, there
This
would
would be
be,
the fitness center.
yeah, so there would be really no reason to be a member there, to go into an empty building.
Because you can't use all the current members.
Right. This
No.
would just be whatever's under that
What
bond.
would you foresee using the THE building for, all this square footage?
Well, well, Duffy still has a lease
We
for,
can turn around and lease it out, I suppose, but.
Yes.
That's totally, yeah.
Golf course is going to lease it.
With
from
what,
CDD.
with what we would save in our rent and all our expenses, we could make a honey of a deal for another restaurant to come in, or with Duffy's. It could be a win-win for everybody.
yeah.
No,
Really.
Would you be able to get a bond without having any kind of renter in there? Would we be able to secure a bond
Yeah,
without?
you're going to secure.
Just buy the building.
You're going to secure it with
We
your
have
assessments, so.
I didn't know if you had a bond's not like a loan.
I wouldn't do a revenue bond. I mean, we've already been burned once by that on the golf course, so I would stay away from a revenue bond.
Yeah, the pledge revenues would be the special assessments.
Yeah.
It'd be a debt service assessment on every vendor.
I agree 100% there. We don't want to do a revenue
No.
bond. But it could be an area of revenue for the community. We get a good renter in there. We're already a good renter, so we're,
And that money that we're paying for the rent would go towards the bond.
right.
You could use it to prepay.
So anyway, that's just, we got a lot of projects, and it'd be a lot nicer to pay them off over 20 years, or 15, or 20, or 30, or whatever, as opposed to hitting everybody up, because this is a lot.
Do other communities typically do that? They bought like multiple capital improvement projects like that?
Most of them are biting off smaller chunks, but they're just, they're redoing and enhancing infrastructure. We talk about some decent purchases and a brand new build. Now you're talking some really critical
Serious
mass.
And you're also talking $250,000 in fees just to create a bond.
That is true.
Yeah, and the
So
reason
you
why,
only want to do it once,
Once.
or,
Right. You want to make sure it's sizable enough that it
Right.
makes sense.
Gotcha.
Now,
Yeah,
Tony,
and from the Gateway perspective, when we did the validation about 2 years ago, it was for a lake bank restoration program that the lakes were initially started to be constructed in 1986. So there were a number of them that had serious issues. And South Florida Water Management District was having issues before. Even though that district got state funding for it, or loans, the revolving loan program, which the most current interest rate is 0. But some of them are 2 and 1%. The district did not want to pay it out over 5 years because it's a $20 million project. So we validated that. That's restoration of existing capital facilities, not building. So you can still do it.
now you were saying if we're doing these projects, and we say, then we want this bond for these projects, and we can pay it out over 20 years. You said that they had to be completed or started within...
Generally within 7 years.
They have to be completed or
It's an outside,
started?
as the tax council will tell you.
Okay, so,
Every one of these projects
The project
could certainly be started.
Start-
Or deemed substantially completed after 7 years.
yeah,
It's substantially complete as in the eye of the beholder. So,
yeah, okay,
I've
because...
seen some deemed substantially complete, you go, still got a ways to go. But
Yeah, because, I mean, the road was a 25 and a 5-year project, but that,
Even moving that up a year or two is not the end of the world.
Yeah.
I mean, just because the report said 25,
Right.
26, even moving it up a year or two, we could get through all these in easily 3 years, be done with them. So,
okay, it might be something we want to look into, get it all done, do a bond. You, Chuck, if you roughly put this together and just, I mean, what do you think an assessment would be?
I wouldn't know at this point.
No, but I mean, that's, give Jeff some homework to do.
That's something I can actually work with an underwriter on and reference some numbers.
Yeah.
Generally, we're issuing bonds in mature communities like this. We're in the upper 2s for interest rates.
Okay.
Pretty darn good rates.
So
I
as
think one of the things I
well,
will tell you, once y'all come up with your plan, your concept, that communicating to the residents and selling it to the residents, town hall meetings, and a very open format is critical. That's,
Yeah.
how is it determined if it's 15, 20, 30? How do you determine the years?
the amortization schedule, the cost of paying the principal and interest back, typically.
It's like.
How much do you write off?
Yeah, exactly. What's the market for the assessment level? So,
Price point.
So we could say, well, let's do a 30 or let's do a 20. It's
could do
not,
a 30 or 20.
there's not some outside rule or regulation that says this
Well,
is
what we
15,
could
this
do,
is 20, this
you
is
could
30.
validate a borrowing up to 30 years, but it doesn't mean you have to borrow the 30-year term. You can borrow one less than that if you want.
Okay.
Do a validation
it
for
could be
30.
one or more bonds.
Yep.
So, it doesn't have to.
How many years were the infrastructure bonds?
I'm sorry?
How many years was the original?
20 years.
infrastructure?
Was it
You were
one?
20.
Was 20?
We're 20, which is an oddball. I've had only a handful of 20s, most of them are 30s. So,
But again, you can validate it for that period of time, and that gives you flexibility.
So-
You validate it for the maximum.
So we could validate it for 30 years and then decide to pay it out in 20.
And you'll always validate, 20, 25% more than what you figure your real costs are to give you flexibility.
Okay.
If you look at some of the original bond issues when developers first started the projects, there are some where it's like $200 million, but they'll never hit that.
Okay. Right, yeah, I'd like to see what the numbers are, to see how we can, I mean, if we could throw the landscaping and the wall and the roads, and possibly the clubhouse, or the building. Could we buy that building with a bond?
Yes, we run a project, yeah. Because it would indicate that part of the project, defined project, is acquisition of the building.
Okay.
And outline what its purpose is for.
Can't wait to that meeting.
The building, the property.
What was that?
Can't wait to see that meeting. We took-
Phil?
Well, I mean, I look at this stuff and I think it's really probably the only feasible way.
Rather
We
than
got a lot
piecemeal?
coming down the pipe.
We do.
Instead of nickel and diming each project, I agree.
Right.
Just do it all in one.
And it's going to be more palatable for everybody. And it makes sense, but if we're going to do it, let's get all this stuff.
Let's get everything done.
Organized, let's get some dollar amounts and let's freaking do it.
See some numbers.
And shove as much of it we can in there, because it just benefits everybody.
Absolutely. And Phil, that meeting, each meeting, a different member is going to be a chairman. That'll be your meeting, Phil.
Great. I got beat up for $47 special assessment on the HOA, so what the hell?
I know. Suck it up, you can do it. Okay, I think that, I would like, if we could lump it all together, I think that it would be easier to deal with, to do it as one lump.
We can sell it.
Okay, anything else? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.